Hello, hello, hello. Assalamu alaikum. Jianu, Pakhair Ragale, Ni Hao, Tune Shume, Washmale, Ohio, Gonzaimes, Guten Morgen, Hola, Bonjour, Privyet, Kaifahal, Halishama Chatore, Alan Wasalan Maraba, and a very amazing good morning to everybody who's out there tuning to PT World and watching World this morning alongside the very fabulous, the very amazing Shiza Hashmi and Shazad Khan. Hello, Shiza, how are you today?
I am good. That is a lot of greetings that you sent our way. Assalamu alaikum and good morning to all of the viewers who are watching our show. Welcome to World this morning.
Amazing.
How did your day start? I mean, mine actually started with a spilled cup of coffee.
Oh.
Who spills a cup of coffee in the morning? And that I take as a bad omen, to be honest.
Okay, you know, the only person who actually spills coffee early in the morning is the one who intends to drink a cup of coffee. So I kind of saved myself because I couldn't, because I'm a tea lover. I mean, it's not that I cannot have coffee.
Oh, you're one of those.
Yeah, so I'm one of those. So probably, you know, by the time when I'm about to hit the gym, that's when I actually have a cup of black coffee, and it gives you quite a lot of rush too as well, and then you're not any more sleepy. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, today we are missing out on top stories because we have got something very interesting to share with you guys. So what are we doing today, Shiza?
So basically, I want to start off with, you know, how important it is for human beings to express what they feel. The medium of expression is very important. People have different mediums of expression. Some write, some sing about it, some make videos about it, whatnot. I want to ask you how you grew up. I mean, what were the things that you were reading or watching?
Okay, so you know, we as kids, you know, me and my brother and my sisters, you know, we were a different generation, and you know, it was very different, and I'm still figuring out whether I should say it or not. But okay, I'm going to say it. I'm going to be bold about it. So we at my place weren't allowed to watch films, you know, and back in those days we only had VCRs and that stuff. You know, I'm that old too as well. But other than that, so I used to watch films through keyholes because my parents used to watch films.
You were secretly
yeah, and we weren't allowed inside. So once I would watch the film, you know, I would find someone very interesting in it, the character, and I would start playing that character.
You'd
and
relate
even
to it.
Till date, you know, whenever I go to the cinema and I watch a film, and if there's one character I like, the moment I'm walking out with that character in me. So
you know,
this
it
is how I
happens to me as well. I watch a movie over the weekend or whenever, and for some days, for 2 to 3 days, I cannot get over it. The character especially, it sort of, you know, stays with you. And our show is basically about that, about a medium of expression that you choose. And do you care to introduce our guest?
Exactly, we will definitely introduce our guest, but I want to ask you one more thing as well, and that is that, you know, over here in Pakistan, for example, you know, when we travel abroad, we are at a train station, we're at a bus stop, or at an airport. I see quite a lot of people queuing up with books, and, you know, they just do not talk random. They'll read, you know, whatever, you know, they'll observe, they will draw, they do something that make themselves busy.
Right.
And I have not been able to see this trend over here within Pakistan because we are not even so keen to read our school books. So how do you think that we're going to read books?
That's true. You know, when I was a student, I absolutely hated reading books, the curriculum books especially. But yes, that's right. I mean, at some point in time, I do believe that in Pakistan, the habit of book reading is sort of dying. But elsewhere in the world, it's not. I mean, just the other day, I was going into Instagram across some pages. There were pages of guys and girls reading books, and there were millions of followers of that. So people are into this, you know, this stuff lately as well.
Exactly, there are, and you know, it's always a good idea to share a book. I mean, you can give somebody a book and then you can get one back as well. But other than that, you know, we'll definitely talk about reading. But today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to highlight a talent of its own kind. Because this guy, he actually came up with the idea of first ever Pakistani fantasy novel. And he's written it, you know, and it has been published as well. It is available in different stores. We're going to tell the name. We're going to share the name. The name of the Powell is, we call it Powell. And I'm glad that, you know, the last time when he was on the show, we came up with this name. That,
you suggested it, yes.
Because it's a novel and then there are poems in it as well. So it's quite interesting. It looks to me, 5 Wishes and the Prophecy of the Prince, and the writer of this fantasy novel is none other than Mr. Farhan Kiani. Hello, how are you? Assalamu alaikum. Congratulations.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
How are you?
I'm really good.
How do you feel now? You're a published author now.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great
I mean, you
feeling.
published yourself earlier, but then you are now
Yeah,
published with the
I
government.
self-published it earlier, and then I actually spent a lot, like 4 to 5 lakhs on it. And then I had to market it myself. I had to go to different. I had my own Facebook page, so I had to market it to the people and sell it via online home delivery and send signed copies and stuff.
Right.
So plus I had to go to different schools and colleges and universities and actually market about to the target audience that were the young adults and the children. So after all that, I would say khwari, a point came when I had made my profile and I presented myself to a publishing company and they said, okay.
Wow, that's brilliant. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
That is amazing. But you know, at the same time, since it's a fantasy novel and it's for the very first time that it's happening over here in Pakistan as well, fantasies probably, you know, you fantasize things when you're a bit younger. For example, when you're in school, when you're in college, and things which you do not have access to, you think about them, you play with them, right in your head. So now you're an advocate, you're a full-time advocate as well. How did the idea go that fulfilling your fantasy of writing a fantasy novel at such an age? Why not earlier?
The thing is that college is something that you come into, you start coming into reality.
Yeah.
For me, the hype of imagination was when I was in primary school. I guess that was the hype of my imagination, and I used to imagine my imagination was very hyperactive.
Right.
And obviously, like you said, we all have different mediums of expression.
Right.
So everyone has their own. Some people sing and some write and some act.
Right.
I was very much inspired by J.R.R. Tolkien. His world, Lord of the Rings and C.S. Lewis, Chronicles of Narnia and J.K. Rowling and stuff like that. So I wanted to create my own world in the start.
Okay.
And I told you this on the last show as well, that I wrote my first story when I was in 3rd grade.
Yeah.
Wow.
I wrote it, I illustrated it, and I stapled the pages to convince myself that it was a book. And obviously, like you said, when we start to grow older, things start to become very realistic in their sense, and we somehow start to believe that whatever we imagined isn't possible. So you know, we're all in the rush to achieve some physical things, like those things that exist in our world, not imaginary things.
You know, but that's great that at this age you were still able to preserve that imagination and fantasy in your mind.
Yeah, obviously.
And then execute it in a book.
Yeah, of course. But like I said, when we grow older, our dreams become strict and strict and strict and strict. We're in sort of a bubble in which we're told and we're taught that you cannot think outside of the box.
Right.
Yeah.
We imagine ourselves.
Reality strikes us.
Right.
Reality of the lives crushes our dreams.
That's
So
true,
we
that's
have to think beyond that.
All right. So thinking beyond that, Shizam, what kind of things do you fantasize?
I mean, there's so many things. Even when I was young, I used to write, because I used to write poems and things, and then I used to show it to my dad, to which he would be like, why is this so serious? How come you're writing this stuff at this age? But in terms of fantasy, I think I am more of a, you know, creative non-fiction writer, or I'm not into fantasy, although I love, as you talked about, Chronicles of Narnia and Harry Potter. I absolutely love watching things like that, and probably sometimes reading, but I can't think of, you know, writing something. Are you a writer?
Well, I'm not a writer. I'll probably call myself a lyricist, because I write quite a lot of songs for people as well, and then for my own self, and then I just, you know, hum according to a tune, any tune which we play. But now, when we come down to fantasies, I mean, as a lyricist as well, you know, there's a lot of wishful thinking which goes in the head. But
there's a philosophy
after going through the cover of the book, if we can hold it, you know, it doesn't look really nice to me, because this kind of fantasy, I think, is a bit scary. It's spooky. So tell us about this one. So what's in it?
It looks sort of spooky.
Yeah.
But because by the looks of it, you can say that these are 5 witches.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So these weren't witches in the start.
Okay.
These
They're
are
vicious.
five fairy sisters,
right,
and they turn themselves into witches.
Okay.
So this is actually a transition from good to bad.
Okay.
So it's the main theme of the book is like it's based on a native Indian American folk tale that every person has 2 wolves in them. One is the dark wolf and one is the white wolf.
Right.
Yeah.
And everyone is born with it. So as we grow older, our personalities become like that wolf, which we feed more often.
Yeah,
if we feed the white wolf, we'll have those characteristics. If we feed the dark wolf, we'll have those.
What do we feed ourselves?
We feed it by our thoughts and by our actions, it's symbolism.
Yeah.
You know. So the thing is that appearances don't matter. if you're trying to be a noble, if your appearance is of a noble person, of a very religious person, of a very virtuous person, it doesn't mean that you are virtuous in your
What
sense.
actually matters is in the inside.
Yeah. So this basically is a transition, and it isn't spontaneous as well.
Okay.
You have to start from a very basic level of something bad, or you can say sin.
Right.
But you have to grow yourself up from that level, and as you grow up, you start to commit a bigger sin, and then then the list goes on, and the point comes when the very evilest of things you don't even bother thinking twice.
Okay, as Shazad mentioned, this is a different genre. This is probably the first genre of its kind. It's called a Powell, right? It's sort of a book version of a Hollywood musical.
Yeah.
How do you explain that?
I wouldn't come straight as the first fantasy adventure novelist of Pakistan. I even know some very talented writers who write fantasy, and they've also been published, but they're like published from a recognized institution. Even I can give money to any person and get published in my own name. That is what I did in the start. I first published it. Yeah. So the thing is, something that doesn't exist is very hard to sell, especially in Pakistan, especially in the world. So you've read Macbeth, it's of Shakespeare, Macbeth, and even Roald Dahl has some musicals. But in Macbeth, even when the witches come, they sing. Otherwise, they don't.
Okay.
In Roald Dahl's musical, also it's not as exaggerated as this. For me, the 40% of the dialogues, more or less, are in a poem rhyme pattern. Like we're just talking normally. So this talking of ours and this discussion turns into a song.
Okay.
So this happens more often in my book.
Exactly. For example, so this is how it goes. Well, hurry up, give me that boy. I'll make him burp or give him a toy. You heard what she said on her way out. The baby shouldn't cry. You heard her shout.
I love it.
Wow, that's just great. And
It
you know,
is brilliant.
since we even talked about Hollywood, so I'm going to read these reviews from Hollywood actors and writers as well for all of you people who are out there. I'm very proud of you for whatever you have done.
Absolutely.
So Steve Gelder, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, from Hollywood, award-winning writer and filmmaker, says about this book, this tale by Farhan Kiani will take you on a journey unlike any other and introduce you to new friends and foes, distant lands and mystical events that will leave you breathless as the right gift at the right time.
Hey, that's great. I mean,
yeah, and
sounds
then there's
amazing.
one more as well by Farhan Tahir. He's a Hollywood actor, and he says you can't stop turning the pages to find out what happens next. So what really happens in this book of fantasy?
If I tell you, you won't go and read it at home, you know.
Just a little bit.
This is what I said, that it's a transition from good to bad. So basically, we don't become evil overnight.
Yeah.
You know, we have to, like, when I go to different schools and colleges and universities, and you know, young students, they ask me questions, and I tell them, who is the most evilest, baddest person in your eyes? And some take some political names, and you know, and some take names of other people. But for me, I eventually come to a conclusion that right now the most evil person in the world is a terrorist, right?
Yeah.
Right.
The terrorists, the people who kill other people. So even they are born as babies. They're not born in terrorists. They suddenly pop up into the hands of the nurse, and they start killing. They first kill the nurse, and then they, you know, it doesn't happen like that.
I mean, he can fantasize anything, right? I mean, imagine a newborn baby killing a nurse, God forbid.
I'm just saying, yeah, when they're born, they gradually inculcated bad things, and when they're children, when they start to do it every day, the frequency of the bad things, it hypes up. A point comes when a person is doing a bad thing, and he just feels normal. He doesn't even has the guilt in his heart that he's doing something bad. So this is the transition of the book. It's a transition from good to bad, and then from good to bad.
Okay, so
and
this
from
is
bad to good again.
right. So this is going to be a series, right? You're going
Yeah,
to
it's a first. The 5 Wishes and Prophecy of the Prince is the first part of a series I'm planning.
Okay.
The second part, I even named it 5 Wishes and the Dawn of the Wizard Lords.
Okay.
That is the second part. I finished 7th chapter of it last night.
Well, sounds interesting, right? You read it.
Last night, 7 chapters.
Wow,
You know, imagine.
imagine.
So are we talking about content over creativity or creativity
No,
over content?
obviously the quality should be the first priority. the content is, I don't want the reader to get bored of my book, you know. I want excitement. I want, like you just said, he should be attached with the book throughout the book, and there has to be something very very new to him. Whatever page he's turning, he should be curious to know what happens next.
Right.
So quality is always better, but obviously the second part is more. It's a bit longer than this one.
All right. Talking about fiction movies, are you a Harry Potter fan?
Well, I've seen quite a lot of Harry Potter films as well, but I'm not really a fan because I just do not like, you know, people flying in the air with brooms and then there are goblets and blah, blah. I'm not. I'm not really, but they say that fiction becomes reality, but I'm waiting for that time when it really does.
It's a quote of J.R.R. Tolkien that we deem that fantasy is some other thing, but fantasy actually teaches us how to live in reality.
Right. Everything you imagine is true.
Yeah, it's basically these are all symbols. So these are all symbols.
So this is why what we're going to do is that we're actually going to share a trailer with all our audiences, people out there. It's from the movie Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. That's what it is. Good morning. Go ahead, take a look. I'm excited now.
Harry, be safe. Be strong.
I just want to be 100% off the grid. The only true freedom lies in not being seen.
We showed you the wickedness of men. I knew you would not look away. The choice was put in your hands because he put it there.
What if I am put in Slytherin?
Slytherin will have gained a wonderful young wizard.
Well, this was Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. The trailer made me want to watch it again.
Again? So that means that you've watched it already?
I mean, the trailer I have, of course.
Yeah.
You know, this makes me want to watch the other movies again because it's sort of a journey. It takes you to a journey of your childhood, of your imagination, and it's always very interesting to go back to that.
Well, I do not want to go back into these memories as well because I just don't like these films. But other than that, you know, they're always interesting for kids. You know, you can watch it. But other than that, coming back to the point where, you know, you're first of its kind, you know, it's a new genre. There will be people, inshallah, likely to follow you on the same path. But for a country like Pakistan, where people do not have a habit of reading, how do you think that the book's going to do in the market?
I have to be very honest. I don't have very much high hopes in Pakistan because let's face it, the education level in Pakistan is not that high, and when it comes down to reading fantasy genre in English language, that line is very, very thin. You know, first you have to consider people who are educated to read enough, first in Urdu, then in English, then people who actually read books on daily basis, and then you again, you know, cut it to people who are interested in fantasy genre. So the line is actually very thin in Pakistan. So, but nonetheless, this gave me, this is a huge achievement for me to get published in a country like Pakistan, and Pakistan will obviously be my home country. It gave me the recognition. It was the first step of whatever I'll achieve.
But it's also gave you an opportunity and a voice to call other people on board, right?
Yeah, of course.
Are you doing anything about that, going to schools and universities?
Yeah. In 2000, the whole of 2017 was actually, I did all this. I went to different schools and colleges and universities. I inculcated the young people to think outside of the box, to be creative. like a guy like me, if a guy like me can write this, a
Right.
guy from Pindi who
From
has
anywhere.
um,
I mean,
I
whoever's
use the
willing
word
to write can write.
yeah, I had no, I attended no workshops,
Okay.
writing workshops. There was no guidance. No one told me how. No, I don't remember anyone in my family who has written a book. So you know, a guy who knows nothing, but if he decides to do something,
Right.
he can go ahead and do it. And I know it sounds a bit cliche that you can be whatever you want, you can achieve whatever you want. You know, a lot of
That's not
people
a
say this,
cliché.
but it's actually very true.
It is, which brings me to my next question. Actually, Farhan happens to be an advocate by his profession. And being a novelist in a country like Pakistan, Shahzad, I think it's very different because usually the parents have already decided they want their kid to be either a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer. So how hard was it you to convince your parents that you actually want to pursue something that you actually like?
Because this is time consuming.
It
Yeah,
is.
it is. But there are two things that you have to keep in mind. One is discipline. Yeah, you have to be very. You have to just force yourself to commit to the task that you're on. Second is belief. Before someone else has to believe it, you yourself have to
right.
believe in your craft.
Absolutely.
You know, the first condition of towards success or towards doing anything is to believe in yourselves. And I'm sure these even coming to media is considered as a taboo in our society,
True,
right?
that's true.
Ask
that's
us.
true.
No, yeah,
Ask me.
you must have gone through not same but more or less the same phase
Yes,
that I
similar
went
situations,
through. So
yes.
it's like you just said, these doctors and lawyers, and since I'm a lawyer as well, so my father and fathers are more realistic, I guess, in a sense. He's like, you're gonna waste your time, but as the time went by, he saw that I'm really committed. He saw that I'm very, very committed to my task and what I have to do. I used to stay awake 3-4 in the morning, and I used to write all this stuff. But now, as I went through, obviously my writing is getting matured, my imagination is getting mature. I'm not taking as much time I used to take before. So right now, I only have to get 1 or 2 hours in the whole of the day, because for this you don't need an office, right? You just need 1 or 2 spare hours in your whole day.
Exactly.
You just have to commit yourself to doing what you do, and you can do that.
And that's just great. And since you believe in yourself, so towards the end, because we have to wrap up the segment, we have to move on to another one as well. So you believed in yourself to an extent where you are spearheading a literary movement as well. You're going to different schools and colleges. Tell us about that, and then what are your future plans with writing?
Yes.
Like
And
I
how
said,
do you plan on expanding this novel abroad? I mean, internationally.
Obviously, I'm looking for mediums to grow internationally, because the real market of this book is internationally.
Okay.
You know, although English may be Pakistan's official language, but it's not its native language. People don't really understand English much. So the real market for this is US, is Australia, it's Canada and UK and in Europe. So I am obviously figuring out ways. I am in talks with companies, and I'm in talks with publishing companies. Obviously, I like to see it getting international, and I'd love to make my country proud.
And should we be expecting a movie or something similar in terms of visuals in the future?
Obviously, the movie is a second phase.
Right.
The first phase is to get the book recognized to its level of recognition that it should get.
Okay.
So the movie thing is a second part. Although I'm in talks with some companies to get, but I'm not very excited to do that, because I'm more excited to get the recognition for my book.
Yeah, because to get to a point where you actually videograph the entire concept of whatever you've given in that, it is very important and pivotal for people to actually read it first, so that they should know, and then the films will work as well. But best of luck for your future endeavors.
Thank you so much.
Farhan, thank you very much for coming over. It
Thank
was
you.
lovely to have you, and you're definitely making us feel proud about what you have done, because it's first of its kind. I always love ideas outside the box.
Now, just because before we wrap up, I just have to ask you how important it is for a writer to actually be a reader as well, and what are some of the keys to being a good writer, to all the aspiring writers out there?
Yeah, obviously, I get a lot of questions. I get a lot of people asking me that, how did you manage to do this? How did you manage? But it all starts from faith,
Okay.
right? You just have to have faith The trust part comes later.
Yeah.
And faith is a prerequisite of trust.
That's true.
So first you have to trust, but whatever you're writing, when you're an author, there are some basic grammatical borderlines that you have to see. Other than that, you're free to do whatever you want.
Okay.
You're free to express, you're free to, it shouldn't be like a criticism on someone. But other than that, as far as your creativity is concerned, you're free to do whatever you want.
That's true.
So,
And, yeah, go ahead.
so if you just have to express yourself, express freely, and then you have to believe, like you just mentioned, even J.K. Rowling and all these huge novelists, they even got rejected by publishers,
I
and
feel
those
like
publishers they didn't consider them worth getting published. You know, so if they can get rejected, so rejection is a huge part of this. I've been rejected
Exactly.
millions of
Exactly,
times.
and you do not have to worry about being rejected, ladies and gentlemen, because when I was trying to get into television, this happened to
Exactly.
me quite a lot as well. But you just made a very good point and wanted to say something about it, but we'll definitely say, but we need to go for a short break. Don't go anywhere. Thank you very much, Farhan, for
Thank
being
you for
with us.
having
It
me.
was lovely
Thank
to have you. But the next segment, ladies and gentlemen, we have dedicated it towards one of the very most important organs within the human body. And within Pakistan, we have witnessed that thousands of people are actually losing their lives just because of the fact that
You
they
know,
couldn't
roughly
get the treatment in
estimated
time.
20,000 people die every year because of what we're going to talk about. Stay tuned to PTV World to find out what this is going to be.
Good morning.
Welcome back. You're watching World This Morning, and today we are discussing a very important factor of well-being. You know, there's a very famous phrase in the world, health is wealth, and it's
Yeah.
true. I mean, bad health, with a bad health, you are not able to pull anything off. You're not able to live a very good standard of life, you
Exactly,
know?
you just don't feel great as well, because I've got a frozen shoulder for the last 1.5 years, and I just don't feel good about it, because every morning when I wake up, it's hurting. But
And
other
it must
than
be restricting you from so many things that you want to do.
yeah, it does, and there are a few things which I can't even tell, so it becomes interesting every other day. But today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to focus on the functionality of our kidneys as well, because quite a lot of times over here within Pakistan, we do not have a trend of going to the doctors, getting ourselves checked up, not even yearly, not even biannually as well. So there's just no concept.
Exactly.
And you were telling us that, just because of the kidney diseases, how many total number of deaths are there
So
in a year?
about 20,000 people die because of kidney diseases in Pakistan alone. That
Exactly.
constitutes about 1.35% of the total deaths happening in the country.
So
Annually.
the rates are alarming, and when we talk about kidneys, so kidneys are obviously there to actually, clean the blood, take excess water out, give you energy, food and everything, and then, the urine goes to the bladder through the kidneys as well. So we really need to have to look after our each and every organ within the body, and just because we
True.
cannot look at them, it gets difficult for us to actually realize what's happening. So there are different symptoms, there are different causes of different diseases which we have over here. We're going to, talk about some 5 or 6 diseases related to the renal problems as well. So, and for that particular reason, we have been joined by somebody who's first of all a nephrologist. He's a kidney transplant specialist. He's MD-FASN, and he's none other than Mr. Muhammad Rashid Ishaq Saab. Hello, Assalamu alaikum, sir. How are you? Good morning.
Walaikum salam. I'm fine. How are you all doing?
Absolutely perfect.
Good.
Thank you very much for joining us. So first things first, what is the difference in between urologist and a nephrologist?
We know both of them
Yeah.
are actually kidney doctors. But
Yes.
what is the difference?
Yeah, so historically, all over the world, people think urologists are the kidney doctors. But
Yeah.
basically, difference between nephrologists is that nephrologist is a medical kidney physician who treats all the kidney disease medically.
Okay.
And the urologist is a surgeon, basically, who deals with the surgery of the kidneys,
All right.
bladder.
Okay.
And in common terms, we call them like a plumbing doctors, because
Okay.
Alright.
they do surgical procedures for the
Okay.
kidneys.
So then what is the difference? Because we write nephrology, you know, right next to your name, we have got nephrologist and then a kidney transplant specialist. So you're a nephrologist and a urologist both?
No. So basically, kidney transplant performed by a surgeon, and then we manage the subsequent post-op care.
All
So
right.
we manage the
Makes
medicine
sense,
part
right?
of that.
Okay, so let's get the conversation started, and we've shortlisted 5 or 6 diseases. We are going to talk about each disease. First of all, we're going to talk about the causes, the symptoms, the diagnosis, and then the treatment. So the first one Shiza has picked up on is?
It's acute renal failure, and it's usually, I think, observed in adults. But before moving on to that, I feel like the major reason of deaths happening due to renal failures is because they're not diagnosed. What do you think about that? How important is diagnosis in time? And also tell us about the prevention of these diseases, of
Yes.
the acute renal failure.
Sure. To start off with, the kidney function is to filter your blood of the whole body, and then clean it and purify it and return the important nutrients back to the body.
Yeah.
So coming back to your question about acute renal failure, so there are 2 types of kidney disease. One is acute renal failure, which is happen acutely while patient in the hospital or suddenly. And the chronic kidney disease is a chronic disease, means it's a spectrum of disease which affects by the kidney. So acute renal failure happens while people are having acute dehydration, if they are out in the field in the sweating and they have vomiting, diarrhea. Any volume loss can cause acute renal failure.
Okay.
And secondly, some medicines, they can also cause acute renal failure.
Okay.
Like such common medicines like metformin we use for diabetes, and IV contrast we use during the heart angiogram, that also can cause acute renal failure.
So is there any way to identify these medicines?
Yes, so these medicines are identified, so it's has a blood test which can give us the kidney functionality, and we can diagnose acute renal failure by the blood test. And then there's a treatment for that is by giving IV hydration and preventing the medicines which are causing the acute renal failure. And so basically we have to keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't happen.
And what happens in acute renal failure? I mean, they stop working or they partially working? What happens?
The partially kidney slows down,
Okay.
and they stop filtering your blood, and then body retains all the toxins like urea and all the other electrolytes which kidney is supposed to filter. So that all toxic metabolites, they cause the damage to the body, and they can damage the other organs like heart
And then what are the symptoms of this particular disease?
So basically, unfortunately, there are now not set aside symptoms. You have to diagnose those with a blood test. So symptoms mostly happen with like nausea, vomiting, dehydration, people feeling tired, and then they have to have a blood test. Without blood test, you can't diagnose acute renal failure.
Okay. Okay. So now moving on, moving on to the next one. Do you think that over here within Pakistan we see that there's quite a lot of anxiety, there's quite a lot of hypertension? Can all of these situations make you fall sick or make your kidneys perform not to the optimum level or just decrease the performance?
Yes. So now we're going to transition to chronic kidney disease from acute renal failure. So most common cause of chronic kidney disease in the world is diabetes.
Okay.
And the second most common cause is hypertension.
All right.
So these both diseases can affect the kidney in the long term.
Okay.
And how they affect that uncontrolled diabetes cause high sugar levels in the blood. And when that blood goes to the kidney, that damage, the high glucose damage the kidney.
All right.
And how high blood pressure damage the kidney is that high blood pressure itself in the kidney damage the small blood vessels in the kidney, and then that causes scarring on the kidney. And all those processes decrease the kidney function, and then kidney slow down its function. Like normal kidney function is about 100%, and when kidney go below 50%, it slow down its functions. So it doesn't filter the blood properly. All the toxins which supposed to be filtered by the kidney stay in the body, and that damage the.
So do you get any symptoms on the outer side as well?
Very good question. So in chronic kidney disease, until it is in the late stages, it has no symptoms, unfortunately. But when the kidney further slow down from stage 3 to 4, and then people start developing loss of appetite, nausea, tiredness, so some vague symptoms.
All right.
And then the blood test again, the blood and the urine test again will identify the problem.
So once it is identified, what are some preventive measures that one should take?
Yes, so it's a very good question. So the chronic kidney disease basically is a spectrum of disease which involves basic preventive care. So patients have to control their diabetes and high blood pressure because they in return damage the kidney. So first we control the hypertension and diabetes, and then we control their diet. Diet is very important part of the kidney disease treatment, and it's come in the prevention.
I mean, there's so much that we don't know. We just feel like a bad diet causes diabetes, but it also causes renal failure. We never knew that, right?
I mean, I think that, you know, people might still not even know that, and they're not even around now.
Exactly,
so,
true.
So this is the problem. This is why we're here. This is what our job is, to raise awareness as well. Now, there are three most common things within Pakistan. I'm going to forget this for a while. First of all, you know, people over here in Pakistan get quite a lot of kidney stones as well. So what is the treatment for that? And then second, we do not have access to clean drinking water at all times. So what does the water we drink is doing to our kidneys, which is not fit for drinking?
So water is a very important part of kidneys and for our whole body. So if water is full of arsenic, mercury, or any other toxins which can damage the body, so when that water dissolves in the blood, goes to the kidney, that damage the kidney itself and the other part of the body. And to maintain adequate hydration is very important, especially in the summertime when people work outside and they lose certain amount of sweat and the loss of extracellular volume. So they have to drink adequate amount of water, because the chronic dehydration will also cause the kidney disease. If body is deprived of water, the kidney itself will gonna be affected.
Exactly. And then what about kidney stones?
Yeah, so kidney stone is a very common disease. It is basically a genetic disease, so it's run in the families. So the prevention of kidney stones is also drinking adequate amount of water. Means you should drink at least 3 to 4 liters a day to produce at least 2 liters of urine. That will gonna flush the blood, flush the kidney, and stone will not gonna form.
Kidney stones usually form in children a lot. So I actually wanted to ask, is it because of the consumption of food? Is some specific thing that we're consuming in terms of, you know, food or drinking that causes these things? And how can we prevent them? How can we identify the things that we should not eat to prevent kidney stones from happening?
So there's a misconception that high calcium foods can cause kidney stone. That is wrong. So most common type of stones are calcium stones, but they need sodium to join calcium and sodium to form the stones. So in children, actually, our diets, especially the processed foods, have a lot of salt in the food. And the high salt is a precursor to form stones. And especially when kids drink less water and high salt diet, that really lead to the stone formation. So there's a keystone for the treatment to drink a lot of water and low salt diet.
Okay, that's good. And then there's one more thing, and it might be a myth as well, but I want to bust this myth. That is that, you know, you mentioned about kids drinking water as well. Then at times kids drink quite a lot of water as well, different juices, drinks and whatnot. And then at the same time, they do not want to go to the washroom or to use the washroom because they're so busy playing. Does it have an impact on your kidneys when you hold it in your bladder for long?
Definitely. So all these juices and drinks and the sodas have a lot of salt and phosphorus. They also damage the kidney and help in stone formation. And holding the urine is a very bad sign, because if you hold the urine, the urine gonna backs up into your kidney and will damage the kidney. Because kidney is not designed to hold the urine, it's just to filter the blood. Bladder is designed to hold the urine for a short period of time.
Okay, so you happen to be a kidney transplant specialist in the US.
Yes.
I wanted to ask about Pakistan because this is not a very well received concept in Pakistan. People are very conservative about organ transplants in general. So do you face any problems in convincing people to actually look into it because it's a better option?
Actually, before answer that question, I want to answer that treatment of kidney failure when kidney fails is dialysis,
Okay.
which is a very financially burdened procedure and has a lot of complications. So patients undergo dialysis 3 times a week. It's very costly, and especially in Pakistan, there are not many dialysis centers.
Right, true.
So the ultimate treatment of kidney failure or kidney disease is kidney transplant.
All right.
In that way, they don't have to do dialysis. They just take certain medicines to have the kidney transplant survive, and then they move on.
And what is the success rate of kidney transplants?
It's pretty good actually. The 10-year success rate is more than 80%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there are 2 different types of kidney transplant in US. One is the disease kidney transplant. When people die, young people die in accident, they harvest the kidney and then match with the donor, with the recipient, sorry. And the second is the living related kidney transplant, which is happening in Pakistan, which is the most common transplant. Like if your family member wants to donate the kidneys, so they will be tested for compatibility and they get transplant.
All right. And since we're running out short of time and we have to wrap up as well, so very quickly, what can be the best home remedies to keep your kidneys fit?
So best
other than drinking water.
Yeah, best remedy is your diet.
Okay.
So salt is the most common risk factor for any disease, for hypertension, for chronic kidney disease, and especially the your low protein diet.
Okay.
Because high protein diet will convert into urea, which has to be filtered by the kidney. So if you eat less protein, less salt, and that will gonna help the kidneys to work less.
All right, amazing that is. Thank you very much for being with us. It was lovely to be in conversation with you. And for all those people who are out there, so, we try to share information about whatever we think is important for you. So please make sure that you guys look after your own selves as well. And Shiza, do you want to say anything? Do you want to add anything?
Yes, I just feel like this segment was so enlightening for me. I mean, drink a lot of water, avoid, consuming salt. And we always knew that we have to consume a lot of protein foods.
Yeah.
But as doctors just said, that a lot of protein is not good for the kidneys. So I think it's time to wrap up the show. I hope you all had a good time like we did.
Yes.
And it was so informative.
It was indeed, and we hope that everybody's taken away anything, or at least something from the show. Or if you haven't, or if you have missed out on anything, please write to us on our Facebook fan page, which is with the name of
World This Morning.
On Twitter.
World This Morning, mine is G.
And Daily Motion YouTube.
World This Morning.
And the fabulous repeat's going to be at
11 p.m. night.
Exactly. So look after yourselves. 1, 2, 3. Good morning.